Hi guys, I'm here for my very favorite video of the year, my personal top 10 of 2018. These books did not all come out in 2018, but they are ones that I read this year, and I cannot wait to share them with you. I think I've talked about most of these ones already in previous videos, but here they are, tied up with a nice bow, ready for you. So in no particular order, here are my top 10 of 2018. First up, we have Thisby, Thestoop, and the Black Mountain by Gorman. This was our May 2018 OwlCrate Junior pick. I've tried very hard not to make every single one on this list OwlCrate Junior picks, but a few of them snuck in because I just love them that much. Thisby, Thestoop is all about the gameskeeper of the dungeons underneath this fantasy castle, who is in charge of keeping all of the monsters and creepy crawly things happy and alive so that knights can come in and fight them. She's an orphan. She's lived her whole life underground taking care of these beasties, and it was just such a fun, inventive, kind of gory in some places. These are not nice monsters, a lot of them. Just fantastic adventure. The princess of the castle comes in for a spot check with her brother, the prince, and something goes wrong. So this grumpy princess and Thisby here have to team up to save the day. Can't recommend it enough. There's part 2 coming out in 2019. I'm very excited to read it. Next up is City of Islands by Wallace. This came out in July of this year. I didn't see this book get a ton of attention anywhere online or in bookstores, but I adored it. It was one of the first books that I read of 2018, and I knew as soon as I finished it that it would make this list at the end of the year. So this is a fantasy book about a 12-year-old named Mara who is an orphan, and she lives in this archipelago of islands. And there are various kinds of magic that people can have. She works with one of like the witches in town, kind of, and she is a diver, so she's sent to go and get fish and retrieve things and deliver things amongst the islands. And one day when she is diving, she finds the skeletons of these ancient creatures that haven't been thought to exist in this world for many, many, many years. And the story picks up from there. Wallace just like created this world like nothing I had ever read before, and it was fascinating. I think it is a one-off story, so I don't know that there will be more of this world to come, but I just can't recommend it enough. It's lovely. Next up, we have Bob by Wendy and Rebecca Stead. This is such an unexpectedly charming little gem of a book. Wendy and Rebecca Stead teamed up and just created 2 fantastic voices. It is a dual perspective book. There's Livy, who has gone to spend the summer with her grandmother in Australia, and Bob, who is this funny little creature, and he's not even quite sure what he is. So Livy is now 12, but you learn that she once visited before from America when she was about 5 years old. And it turns out that Bob was a friend that she met then. So she slowly starts to remember who he is, and then she helps him find his way home. It has some lovely plate illustrations distributed throughout the story that just add even more charm to an already fantastic book. This is a perfect read aloud. I think it appeals to a lot of ages. It's fine for, you know, 6, 7, but I think it has enough story and enough plot to it that it is just as great for a 12 or 13-year-old. Next up, I have a grown-up pick, and that is Eleanor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail, Honeyman. This is one that I think I first heard about through Reese Witherspoon's book club, and she is actually turning it into a movie, which I'm quite excited about. But it is about our main character, Eleanor, who lives a very isolated life and like a very regimented life and goes through the same paces every day, and she thinks that she is completely fine. It just sort of never occurred to her that there is something more than fine out there. And then through a sort of a chance encounter, she and one of her co-workers see an old man collapse in the middle of the street, and the 2 of them help him. By sort of going out of her comfort zone in that one little moment that she just happens to be there for, she sort of begins to open up all these different doors in her life. So by opening herself up to these social interactions that never fit into her schedule before, she sort of is also rescued in a way. But there's so much internal dialogue and heartbreak that goes along with this, because she has to be open for the first time ever. This is also, I thought that Gail Honeyman did such a fantastic job, because I did not like Eleanor for the first few chapters. Her approach to social interactions are very jarring, at least in the beginning. And by the end of the book, I just loved her with my whole heart, and was so sad and happy and everything in between for her throughout the story. It was a great character study, it was really well written, and I can't wait to watch the movie of it. Next up is Calypso, which is the latest collection of essays from David Sedaris, who is my all-time favorite author. This is by far one of his most personal collection of essays, and that is coming from somebody who writes strictly personal essays. That is what he does. But these delve even further into the life that he's sort of laid out in his previous books. It was so funny. It made me cry a couple of times. It is, of course, weird because it's David Sedaris. If you've never read his books, I would suggest starting with an earlier one of his collections, just to kind of like lay the groundwork for who his family is and what his whole deal is. But if you are a seasoned reader of his, then I think you will agree that this is some of the best stuff he's put out in years. Next up, we have Arlo Finch in the Lake of the Moon, which is the second in the Arlo Finch series by John August. We included the first Arlo Finch in the February 2018 OwlCrate box, and it was such an incredible adventure, and this one does not disappoint. This one is all set at summer camp, so Arlo has gone there with the Rangers and his friends that we've met in book 1, and it's amazing. John August has created, or like built upon, this world that he's already created in such an exciting, well thought out, believable fantasy way. What else to say about this? It's not coming out until February of next year, so get those pre-orders in now. But holy smokes, there's at least a part 3 coming. This series could go on forever as far as I'm concerned, but I guess John August will have to build other worlds after this. Anyways, I could rave and go on about this one all day long, as could Crystal, who is behind the camera here. We are obsessed. It's wonderful. Please read these books. Next up, I have another adult one, and this is a very adult one, and that is I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara. Michelle McNamara was a true crime blogger who had quite a well-respected true crime blog where she looked into cold cases of all kinds. But there was this one that she kept coming back to. And this book is the culmination of all of her research. That she actually ended up coining the term the Golden State Killer by uncovering the fact that all these seemingly disparate accounts of horrible things that had happened sort of all down the coast of California were actually all one man, and she strung all the pieces together. I'm not a true crime person, or I didn't think that I was a true crime person. It's not something that I typically gravitate to, but I could not put this book down. It's incredibly well written. She treats the victims of all of these horrific crimes with like immense respect. It's so well researched, and I actually like stole my boyfriend's copy from him while he was in the middle of it and kept being like, yeah, I mean, you can have it back if you want. I could not put it down. It's very intense. It talks about a lot of graphic, like sexual violence. So if that is something that you don't want to read about, that's very understandable. But I think true crime fans or not can definitely enjoy this one. The last adult book on my top 10 of 2018 is Future Home of the Living God by Louise Erdich. I think this one would be classified as magical realism. but please correct me if I'm wrong. It is definitely dystopian. Our main character is Cedar, who is a 26-year-old Ojibwe woman, and she is pregnant. And you learn at the beginning of the novel that something is going on in the world, and basically evolution has reversed itself. No one knows why, no one knows if it's gonna continue this way, but there are huge animals that, like gigantic birds that are like prehistoric. So as well as all these crazy prehistoric animals, you learn that the human babies that are being born are coming out looking like a primitive species. One thing that I think Louise Erdich does incredibly well is you actually don't learn a lot about what these babies look like, but she just like builds in this external fear that like everybody is feeling. The government has become involved in everybody's business and is actually like taking pregnant women and containing them. Again, I have never read anything like this one. Because Erdich leaves out very like specific pieces of information, you just get this like very chilling glance into this future world that is not too far in the future. That's kind of the only way I can describe it. I don't want to give away anything else because it unfolds in a very interesting way. But yeah, if you're looking for some odd, beautifully written adult fiction, definitely check this one out. Next, I have The Train to Impossible Places by P.G. Bell. I couldn't help myself. I had to put at least one more OwlCrate Jr. pick on this list. This is the story of Susie, our main character, who wakes up one night and there is a train in the middle of her living room and it is being driven by a troll. So she obviously stows away on this train and becomes a postie in training for the Impossible Places Postal Service, which is run, of course, by trolls. It is such a fantastic, well-constructed fantasy world. So after stowing away, one of Susie's very first deliveries tells her that it does not want to be delivered, and she wisely or unwisely listens to this package, and it sets off a chain reaction, and you slowly learn what on earth is going on in the Union of Impossible Places. Somebody described this as Alice in Wonderland meets the Phantom Toll Booth, and that the whole time she was reading it, she was imagining it as a Studio Ghibli creation, which is like the perfect summation of this book. Again, there will be more to come from this world in 2019, which I'm just thrilled about. And if you are looking for a super fun family read aloud that will appeal to a bunch of ages, here you go. And last but certainly not least is The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. This one actually came out a few years ago, but I finally got around to it just a few weeks ago and fell head over heels in love with it. It is the story of Roz, who is a robot who crashes onto this little island and is activated and then becomes a wild robot. She makes her home by slowly learning the ins and outs of this island. She adopts a goose who becomes her son. She cares for all of the other animals on this island. She builds a fantastic little cave, or a dwelling for her and her goose son. It is so utterly charming. It is full of illustrations from Peter Brown, who is one of my favorite children's book illustrators and authors. And it's just wonderful. Again, a fantastic read aloud. I've heard that the audiobook is really great, but you don't get to see the beautiful illustrations with the audiobook, so I'd recommend both. Kelly very kindly lent me part 2, which more recently came out, which is The Wild Robot Escapes. Oh my goodness, do yourself a favor and read this one. It is just fantastic. So of the 65 books that I finished this year, those are my very favorite top 10. I would love to hear what your top 10 were, or even your top 3. You can leave those in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe for more videos every week. Happy reading, happy holidays, and thanks for being awesome.